So we're fishing with the pro, Bryan Bogdan, and you're known for all the big walleye you pull up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So what are 5 early ice tips you have for catching those big walleye this time of year?
Well, number 1 is location. First ice, I always target midwater structure or structure near deep water. That's pivotal because as the water's cold in the fall, those fish are going to depths in order to try getting to warm water, or going into shallow bays that are a little bit stained, because that stained water will absorb heat from the sun and just keeps it naturally warmer. In those areas, you always want to also watch for your ice conditions, because they might not quite be as consistent as your main lake. So those are kind of the locations I go. And then the next biggest thing is fall rate. People don't understand how much fall rate can affect the bite. And by fall rate is basically how fast a spoon or your presentation goes from falls, basically. So you'll have things like a tingler spoon or something that's flat and does lots of flutter, and it's a real slow fall. And with that, if they're aggressive, you can get away with faster things like buckshot spoons or things like that. But if you're finding that the fall rate isn't really effective on them, you're on fish, then you want to downsize. And I go right down to 1/4 ounce stuff. And it's amazing when you go small how many big fish you can connect on. So many people correlate big fish with big baits, and so many times on those real inactive fish that are just kind of cruising, just seeing, if the bait is too big, they won't hit it. The next thing that is so important is bait. You need to have fresh bait, because these fish are in a total shock of that metabolism slowed down because they're in such cold water now, that if that bait isn't fresh, they just don't want it. And it can be salted minnows. You have to have dead minnows up here to use, or it can be crawlers or mealworms. As long as it's fresh, it'll be okay. And the last thing is the dead stick. And so many people think that dead stick has to be done with live bait. And I have so many clients that come up here and be like, what? You're just going to let a dead minnow sit down there? And I get that same reaction non-stop. Let that bait sit there completely horizontal, the fish will attack it. And you have seen it how many times that even though you're jigging and all of a sudden your dead rod's going right beside you, sometimes more so than jigging, it's just for some reason just still, slow, and just sitting there, it makes them take. I can't explain it, but I know it works. So
that's what matters.
We do too.
Yeah.
We do too.